everybody, and welcome to the ranking, rating, reviewing podcast that we like to call Music Meltdown, in which we rate, rank, and review an artist's discography, singles, songs, really just whatever musical topic, or hell, I might do something else random that I want to do in the future, typically in relation to music, that I want to do. This episode going the deepest into metal, alternative metal, real goofy shit that I've done so far with band System of a Down. Started in the late 90s, extended out into the mid 2000s. A couple of Horsery singles, EPs after them, but for the most part, they've been pretty silent since around '05. And yeah, led by Serge Tankian, Darren doing the harmonies, whatever the really shitty drummer's name is, and the other dude.
Oh,
No, I'm not saying he's a bad drummer. I'm saying he's a bad person.
okay, okay, okay. All right.
I didn't
All right.
break your heart too bad.
Oh, I was like,
He's a good drummer. He's a good drummer. I'll give him that.
absolutely. Oh my God, he's a beast.
Oh yeah. I got Chris back from Roxy Music, The Killers. Hopefully, some fun stuff later on, and bringing in a new guy, a little hippie-looking man down there, Grant. He's excited.
How we doing?
Eh, I'm here.
Yeah, we are here.
Oh yeah. This weirdly enough, given everything that I've said about my personal tastes, you maybe wouldn't have expected me to know System of a Down that well, considering I've really not touched metal at all. I haven't gone heavier than like the Yardbirds, I don't think. And yeah, it's some real wacky music at times, but I actually knew System of a Down incredibly well. I want to say I'd heard all of these albums except for the self-titled at least like 3 times. They were one of those bands like within the first year I was getting into music when I was a lot more interested in heavier stuff I really got into. Spoiler alert, I don't love most of these records, but I absolutely adore Serge. He's one of my absolute favorite vocalists, just a complete monster that even with the stuff I'm less high on, he can elevate it. That being said, Grant, what did you know going into this?
Uh, I was a big fan of System of a Down going in. I mean, when getting off to drumming, a lot of those crazy drum riffs that John Dolmayan plays, like those were the things I was cutting my teeth on trying to play and get down. Uh, like you just said, Serge Tankian is one of my absolute favorite vocalists overall, not just in metal. The crazy thing with him is like he's very skilled technically and also very interesting creatively, which is like an absolute dynamic duo for a vocalist and like a creative force in a band like that. So this is a band with killer musicianship all around.
Absolutely. Maybe this is just me, but I figure I'll get it out of the way because I'm going to bring it up a while. Kind of like because Faith No More kind of stopped putting out stuff around this time. They kind of took up the torch for that alternative metal, really interesting, sort of wacky stuff, I would say.
And
And
Serge has a lot of
oh yeah,
similarities to Mike Patton.
Serge was definitely inspired by
Oh my
Mike Patton
God.
for sure.
And I love it.
Oh, it's great. He's great. And Chris, you want to give your experience with good old System of a Down?
Yeah. Well, as a child of the '90s, I was a youngin when Mesmerize and Hypnotize came out. That's when I became very aware of them. I think I had maybe heard Toxicity or Chop Suey before that, but when those albums came out and BYOB was just everywhere, um, me and all my friends, being 13 or 14, something like that, were just really into them. Um, Thought they were incredible. Some of my friends went to see them. I was pretty jealous that I didn't get to go, but uh, yeah, so I got very familiar with both of those albums. I acquired them quickly, um, and then kind of started working my way backwards. I downloaded some of their music on Kazaa or LimeWire at the time. I don't know, one of those programs. Um, and got kind of a taste of all the records um, that way, which was really great. And yeah, I definitely considered myself a big fan of especially what I'll call the core records. And and I agree. The drum parts were always really fun for me to try to drum along to. I could play some, and I could not play some others very well. Big fan of Surge. I think his voice is just incredible for this music, and kind of set the standard for the alternative metal in the into the 2000s for what a vocalist can do. I definitely do get a lot of Pattonisms in him, um, and kind of in this modern alternative metal scene. So I think they kind of rose above a lot of the other bands at the time. Um, Also having this kind of politically charged nature about them was interesting, and definitely as a child through the war on terror was a cool thing to kind of listen to and rebel. Um, Elephant in the room, though, Darren, man, I'll talk about that later. But
I,
I,
I like I like them when they harmonize. I like them when they harmonize.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yes, absolutely.
Uh,
definitely he's a good
his
harmony
leads
guy, but
are
the
Oh,
leads I
the
will
leads are
struggle.
arguable.
I in listening through some of these records, and I'll talk more about that. But yeah, shout out Surge. This is what I'll sum
But
that up.
I have a feeling I know where Hypnotize is going to land given that. But let's get into this here.
Mm,
I always felt like that was the one that had the most Darren in it. Maybe I'm wrong there. But alrighty, I'm going to kick things off. Number 5. I know I've said that I have a fairly normal list, but I think that this might be because I gotta have at least one goofy option. Going with the self-titled. I think that there are some growing pains for the band, and I'll cut to the chase. The like fully more aggressive metal tracks just simply aren't very good to me. Reminding me a ton of Faith No More, the stuff they were doing on good old Angel Dust back there, and the band just simply are not on the level that Faith No More was. But Surge is just a powerhouse. He's able to make what I would generally call pretty lousy songs worthwhile, just because of his vocal presence. There are a couple of softer numbers on here that I think work a lot better. I think Suggestions is great, and Spiders as well is excellent. But I feel like on a lot of the weaker records, for me at least, they just kind of are wannabe Faith No More, just trying to do the real thing, or Angel Dust, and just aren't really as successful to me. I have this at 2.5 stars because I love Surge, but it doesn't really pull me in the way that some of the other records do. So that's my bottom.
2.5.
that's
It'll
rough.
get better. It'll get
That's-
better.
Okay. Grant, you want to go next?
yeah. All right. So for my 5th album, I have Steal This Album, which, I mean, interesting story with that album was that was around the time the MP3s were getting big. It was kind of like blowing up, and basically they had their stuff leaked, and people were calling it toxicity too. And they eventually kind of took those, shined them up a little bit, and turned them into what Steal This Album is. And I feel like you can really it sounds exactly like that. It sounds kind of like sounds like it could be a deluxe version, kind of gets released in there, like a rarities kind of record. It has like the production sheen of the previous 2 albums, but it definitely there's cuts that sound like they're from Toxicity. There's cuts that sound like they're from like the self-titled debut. I think really for me, only track that really is worth something to me that I'll take from it is Intervision. I feel like that could have been on Toxicity, and it would fit along very well. But everything else is just kind of it's pretty much leave it, to be honest with you. I do really like Roulette at the end, kind of changing things up, gets a little slower. I like a little detour from the heaviness, and then Streamline's a good finisher. Has a really nice solo at the end. I mean, Toxicity is just a hard album to follow up, and that's what it is. Honestly, what this album felt like was like going to a big restaurant, and you have this awesome view, and you have all the silverware, and everything's done up really nice, and you get the chicken, and you cut into it, and it's like pink, and it's just undercooked, and it's not there, it's not ready, and you're just like, oh, like maybe if it cooked a little longer, maybe if this album cooked a little longer, there could have really been something here. But for me, it just is like, oh,
You're sending it back.
yeah, sounds like a B. Sounds like a B sides.
Yeah. Okay.
That's fair. That's fair.
Um, my number 5 is also Steelers album. Um, I agree with a lot that Grant said. I kind of thought it was better than I was expecting. I do think there are some definitely quality songs, um, but it does as an album feel like a total mess. um, and it's really not the album I'll ever turn to for their sound. Minus maybe a couple tracks. You mentioned Intervision. I really like that one. I really like Boom, and I think the Mr. Jack into IEAIAIO. I think that's a pretty good run. Boom is probably my favorite from the record. Has that pulse on the hi hat and the kind of talking vocals that then explode. Kind of reminds me of like the Sugar effect. And overall, just the album doesn't really have a good flow for me, and several tracks that just lose me, that don't really interest. So, uh, I think that there's some interesting political commentary throughout, but it's not enough to really carry the album or make it that great of a listen. I do have this at 3 stars because there's enough good stuff that I don't think poorly of it, but it's fine. It is an album they released, and I don't know if I were around then and I didn't steal the album, I may have been a little bummed that I spent $20 on the CD. So yeah, there you have
Alrighty,
I
let's,
agree.
let's keep talking about it. That's my number 4. I think Toxicity is an incredible step up from the debut, but this is maybe one of the worst follow-up records just in general. It's not bad, mind you, but it's not even close to the same level of quality. I mean, as you're both saying, it's pretty much like a B-sides, like a compilation record. Some stuff seems plucked from Toxicity, some of it from the self-titled. Just kind of varied from track to track. Like you both said, I think Intervision is really cool. I think ADD is also quite a good song. And I think Highway Song and Roulette near the back end are some of the best here, but none of those songs are anywhere near my favorite System of a Down songs. And most of them do fall within a weird middle ground between the debut and Toxicity. And I can see that there's a lot of growth within the group, but the material just isn't really there. It's mainly made decent once again through Serge's powerhouse vocals and Darren's great harmonies. It's not a terrible record, it just kind of feels meaningless. I have it at 3 stars. It's decent, but I don't think I'm going to go back to this one anytime soon. And kind of like Chris mentioned before, I don't think any of their records are really all that consistent in sort of theme or style. They tend to vary a lot of the time, and I do think that it becomes a bit of a struggle for me to get fully into some of the records because of that, even though they tend to have good songs. They just never really seem to put something out that's fully consistent for me, is probably how I would define a lot of these records.
All right. So I did forget to say my score for Steal This Album. I had it at like a high 3, maybe a low 3.5 on a good day. For my number 4 album, I go and Hypnotize. So for me, man, Hypnotize is just too much of the same of Mesmerize. Like if this was released in the streaming age, this would have been like the deluxe album that gets released like 2 weeks later. So that's what I feel like when I hear it, and like it just the energy feels lacking. I don't know if it's like the production or something, but it doesn't have the same punch that a lot of like Toxicity and that a lot of songs on Mesmerize had at times. I do like how it starts off very quickly. Attack, it really is an attack. It gets right into it. It's rock and roller coaster, just 0 to 60. But it goes like right into dreaming, and it just kind of feels like, it just okay. It sounds like almost the same track again. Kill Rock and Roll though, I like more than I think it's worth, just because I love the story to it. I don't know if you guys know, but that story is because I think it was Darren hit a rabbit with his car and he felt really bad about it, and he named the rabbit Rock and Roll. So when he's killing Rock and Roll, that's that, and he has like the accidents happen part, which I really like the part where it's like accidents happen, like it goes right into that chorus. I love that. I love stuff like that. Hypnotize, my favorite track on the album. I love the hypnotizing guitar melody. I like that it kind of probably achieved what it was going for in a sense, where like that's how I learned about Tenement Square. Like after hearing that song, I looked it up, and it was like one of those things I learned about, and it was kind of like, man, cool. Rock and roll just taught me a cool history lesson, man. I love that. But then it just kind of gets a little iffy in the middle here. Like Holy Mountains, it feels very dull, drags on a bit. Vicinity of Obscenity is a super interesting track though, because that sounds like it could have been plucked on from the debut. It's got that zany energy to it, has manic energy. The vocals, I love how like when he says liar, it sounds like a siren, and there's other vocal effects that sound like sirens. The little guitar funk melody that comes in on like the pre-chorus, I believe it is. The lyrics themselves, though, sound like they're outsourced from Anthony Kiedis. They're all over the place. And like, I'm sure if I read into it and like deciphered it, I'm sure there's like a real good meaning to it. But just from face value, it's just like banana, banana, terracotta pie, repeated, I think, like 32 times. Now, I don't know what that means, but I'm sure there's a really good meaning to it. And yeah, to me, like this album was successful in everything. It charted well, it sold well, but I don't think the content itself was as good as Mesmerize. I think it's one of those things where it's like the album wanted to be Led Zeppelin 1 and 2, and it's more like Lil Uzi Vert's Eternal Atake and Eternal Atake Deluxe Love vs. the World Part 2. I'll give it a low 4 though. High 3.5, low 4.
I just want to point out with the Sandy of Sandy's because I didn't write anything about it. I love how like a minute in, there's almost like a weird sort of disco flavor that happens in that song. It's so interesting, and I love how
Yeah,
Serge and Darren's vocals work over that. Killer.
100%.
Yeah. But,
Um,
interesting.
okay. Um, well, I might be sorry for this one. My number 4 is Mesmerize. I think like Grant has now. I seriously have this in my notes. I think I had rose-colored glasses on for this one. Um, because going into this, I thought it would be, like number 2. um, I think several of these songs do not work very well. They were very fun in high school. They were a lot of fun in high school. I used to scream on the way to racquetball um, about the size of my cock. But I I don't think these have really stood the test of time almost 20 years later. I think BYOB and Revenja are still a lot of fun. BYOB like I think it deserved the fame that it got. I think there's a lot that's been said about it, and I'm still a fan of that of the song. It just has such an energy that still brings it. And Revenja has that driving riff that's just like, oh, it's just frantic and fun. Um, but Cigarro and Radio Video, I don't think I like at all anymore. I'm sorry. um, Cigarro is I think self-explanatory. Just feels kind of crass for the sake of it. And Radio Video, it seems like some half-hearted message about media, but it never really gets coherent. Um, but I will say about that song, the intro is sick. Like before the vocals come in, I love that. I wish it was just that for 3 minutes. Um, Cocaine is just like a throwaway song for me. And that suite of 3 just bring the album down quite a bit for me. I do think Question and Sad Statue are both very strong. Question has always been one of my favorites. I remember seeing the video. I downloaded the music video like off of Kazaa also. So I had that on my computer back in 2006 or something. And Sad Statue, I always liked that one. Um, and then they just kind of get back to vaguely trashing Hollywood, which is just kind of a weird. Um, I don't know. Like Hollywood probably deserves the trashing, but it just feels kind of half-hearted. I don't know. I don't know how to phrase it. It doesn't feel very empowered. Um, and they start off the album with BYOB, like Soldier Side intro into BYOB, and you're like, nice. This is gonna be like about war or George Bush or something, and then it's just they just abandon that topic basically. Um, Sad Statue maybe kind of addresses, but not really. And overall, I was kind of disappointed with this. It feels bad. I think there are several jams on here, but as a whole album, I think the bad just drags it down, and I still like it. I give it a 3.5, and like I said, Question, Sad Statue, BYOB, Revenja, those are all great tracks, and I'll come back to those for sure. Otherwise, I don't know if this album has a lot for me, but I give it a 3.5. That's Mesmerize.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much all of that. I think Mesmerize is by far the weaker of the two records. Um, it's a step up from Steal This Album, but still not good. I have this one at 3 stars, which means decent. I just think that this record is really inconsistent, and all the records are, but this one especially, I feel. I don't like Siagro at all. Uh, I think Violet Pornography has a great chorus, but the verses just simply aren't that good to me. BYOB is amazing. Conversely with Chris, I actually really like Radio Video. Overall, though, most of the tracks just simply don't do much for me. Despite that, though, I think Lost in Hollywood is a really excellent closer, probably their best one overall. But I just think similar to Steal This Album, it just struggles to have a strong flow from song to song. It's like this is one of those records where it's like there's a great song, then you get another great one, then you're just like, oh, just sort of varies a lot of the time. And I don't know, I just prefer the songs on this one to Steal This Album, but pretty much as soon as you give me Toxicity, I just end up feeling really let down. And I don't know, maybe it's just me because I know Rick Rubin, I think he produced Toxicity too, but especially on Mesmerize Hypnotize, you kind of get the Rubin flavor, which I learned this week I am not exactly that big a fan of the Rubin sandwich, so that's fun. But yeah, Mesmerize, number 3, 3 stars.
All right. Coming in the middle, I've got the debut. New, like super raw and powerful for me. I feel like Surge adds enough of an interesting flavor to give it away from that kind of that Faith No More style, in my opinion. Uh, I do think that his vocal effects and everything could probably be a bit much for some people. He definitely has a lot of squeals. There's a lot of really like low growls, but at the same time, like I love that kind of stuff, and it's instantly recognizable to me. Like for some of the songs, I really think it like makes it. Like I love on No, I love on the hook where it's like you never think you know war. I love stuff like that, and he does that for a couple of different tracks, and then the most he is at Mike Patton is on Sugar, where he has that like little breakdown at the end, and he's like, "No lights, no music." I'm like, that I've heard that on a Mr. Bungle track somewhere, and I still love it. The other cool thing though that I love that I feel like Don't Mind brings to this is like a very fast jazzy style of music from like drumming from metal. There's a lot of very interesting little jazzy melodies he's playing in those parts where it's like it's really super fun to listen to. And I've been listening to it all day, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like he is. Don't Mind really shines a lot throughout all 5 of these albums, to be honest with you. But I really think here is where like the energy that System of a Down has on this track is like it's bursting. And eventually in Toxicity, they learn how to take all that energy and kind of find it, bring it to like a focused kind of energy, kind of focused style, and they're able to make the best of what they have. I don't know if people like this song, but my favorite track off of that is "The Devil." I absolutely love that track a lot. The shuffle beat, the vocal spasms, and then the song that follows that was "Soil," where it's a pretty heavy topic talking about suicide, which I find to be kind of one of those like kind of touching. They focus a lot on like a lot of politics and stuff, and that's one where they're kind of touching a more personal note of something, watching a friend go through something and unfortunately losing his life, and it's a powerful hit song, and I appreciate that kind of style, that kind of lyrical uh kind of weight on something like this. Other than that, I think Mind has a pretty cool sequences as well. Kind of has almost a prog flavor to me in at some points. But yeah, this is like I had a lot more fun listening to this album than I thought I was going to. And I think it like what I would have given to be able to see these guys play this around the time they released it and they were still hungry and wanting to that all that energy is them just overplaying the part so they can make sure they get the part. But I have it at a low 4 as well.
Okay, nice. Um, that's also my number 3. The debut, the self-titled from 1998, Project 1998, going strong. I knew some of these songs going in, but I don't think I had ever really listened to the full record until this. So I listened a couple times to get it down, but yeah, a couple random songs like I had Qbert and Sugar downloaded, maybe another one too, but those are the two that I remember the most. This album starts off so well. I think the first like 5 songs are just like it's just a great run. A very cool intro to the band, and yeah, they're absolutely bringing that energy. Um, and then you get to Sugar, and it's just like, oh man, this rocks. I didn't really know what to expect from this because I feel like people don't really talk about it too often. It definitely gets kind of overshadowed. But I had a lot of fun with it, and I think, kind of in retrospect, this is an awesome effort from the band. Yeah, they would kind of refine some of the sound, but not always how I wanted them to, I guess. So I think that some of this raw energy is really welcome, and they're still trying to figure it out. Um, like I said, the first 5 songs really great. Also, Mind was a standout for me. Yeah, it's like over 6 minutes long, and it's I think it's awesome. Um, it I'm not the biggest fan of like War, Peephole, some of those tracks. Like they're fine, they're there. Um, you know, I think I need to like spend a little more time with this record. But I really was enjoying it. I don't think I can quite give it a 4. I give it a 3.5 just because there are enough tracks that I kind of lose me. But I do think the energy is there, and I think overall it's pretty fun. I do think Surge sounds pretty great, and the overall musicianship is pretty solid. And they stand firm in 1998 as as a force, and obviously they would continue uh, that trend. So yeah, I will return to this record and see if I can push it to a 4 sometime. But I think for now it's a comfortable 3rd place, and that is the debut.
Nice. Yeah, I'm probably a little bit lower on that record than most people, but I don't know. My opinion on them as a whole kind of went down on this listen. Not that I dislike them, but it's just I don't really listen to metal very much at all anymore. So it's kind of like going in raw for these 5 after a while. So it was interesting. Number 2, though, I mean, if you've heard how I've been talking about these, I think you can pick up what my number 2 is. I've hypnotized. This is a pretty good album overall. I have this one at 3.5 stars, so I do have some good records here. I feel like this is the one that's most based with their harmonies in mind, and well, Darren and Serge have definitely sung before on a record like Toxicity. I feel like this is when they utilize it to its most potential. And I just love the way that these two sing together. You have Serge, this big, like aggressive, almost like tyrant with how he's singing everything. And you have Darren kind of in the background, this big old nasally whine that kind of sounds like shit most of the time, but works so well with him that I'm cool with it. Despite that, I think it starts out really strong with Attack. Dreaming's pretty cool. There are a few of the more jokier songs, which I don't know if I've mentioned. I don't really like most of them at all. That's what really took a hit for me. They just don't play well to my ears anymore. Um, I Killed Rock and Roll is fine. She's Like Heroin just didn't work very well. Uh, well, what was the name of the one song? Vicinity of Obscenity. I like that one. Like we mentioned before, the whole disco flavor, it works, but I mean, it's just kind of takes a while in the whole terracotta pie thing. Like, come on, man, you couldn't have written something better. I don't know. It is what it is. It works for this band and only this band to do something like that. But there's plenty of other songs. I love Hypnotize, and then I think Lonely Day and Soldier Side at the end are incredibly strong. I don't have a ton to add about this record. I just think it's a really solid batch of material with some of the best vocal work by the band. It's 3.5 stars. It's a good album. I like it.
All right. For my number two, Mesmerize. I think I know. I think everyone's gonna think we're gonna hear Toxicity 3 times in a row, and I love it. But for my number two, Mesmerize. Uh, so according, I was doing a little research, and according to, we were kind of talking about it before, but apparently I was wrong. It wasn't Mesmerize and Hypnotize. It was the fact that by this point, Serge was starting to check out of the band. So a lot of this is more Darren's songwriting, almost more his vision for the band in a sense. And so that's kind of what you have kind of going against each other here. You have Darren's vision for the band, and then like kind of like Serge's kind of vision, like, or at least all of them gelling together in one and kind of going at each other. And on my first re-listen, I had Mesmerize above Toxicity. I got back into it, and I was loving it, man. Okay, so yeah, BYOB is one of the best ways to start an album. Okay, that is a cocaine binge set to music. It's unbelievable. The little dance disco part in the middle with the chorus, the blast off part where it goes crazy. I love how in the second one it interrupts like right away. It goes like right into where the it goes right into it. I love that, the crazy riff at the end when it goes down to the end, like that song. Oh my god, I will never tire of that song, no matter how many times I hear it. That song just kills me. And then right into Revenga, another one where it was just like on the re-listen, I was like, oh my god, like I forgot about this track, and it was like hearing it again, it blew my mind again. I was like, I remembered it, loved it so much, and I feel like it goes from there. Cigaro, yeah, it's the lyrics haven't aged great, but I still love the energy of it. There's a couple of things that don't age very well. Just anytime you look at almost any 90s music, I figured that from going to 98. There's stuff that you just kind of like, even in 2005, there was still stuff that was not aging very good. But I don't know, man. I still like Cigarette. I still think it has a little bit of its charm. And the radio video was one of the ones where I was, again, just blown away by how much I like that track. I love the chorus that, hey, man, look at me. I love that awesome kind of very like showman. I love that kind of stuff. I love the gradual tempo increase as the track goes on later in. I love stuff like that. I find it funny that there's a song called This Cocaine Makes Me Feel Like I'm on This Song, and it's not BYOB, because I thought that those would fit very well. But then again, I guess This Cocaine probably isn't a good radio title, not very radio friendly. So BYOB works better in that sense. That was the first one where I was like, okay, all right, we're okay. Because I love Violent Pornography. And then Question is my favorite System of a Down song. I adore that song way too much. I love the vocal melody on the verses. I love that last chorus where it comes in, where it has those guitar chugs, goes 16th notes on like the ride and the crash going in there. I love the little key change that kind of brings it up a little bit higher in the register. I love strong screams in music. Those are all over that track. But again, that last scream where it kind of ends in like a wail almost and goes back in that little acoustic part right before it kind of leads out. Love it. Feel like that song is so well crafted. Love that song so much. Sad Statue is another one that on re-listen, I was like just blown away again. And I feel like that's the thing. Just re-listening to them, I was like remembering how much, like, I feel like this is more of a cohesive project more than Toxicity was. But then you get to those last two tracks, and it's kind of like you're seeing Darren's, wanting to make this album, but it's also like this is System of a Down without Serge, because he takes a very small part in those songs, and they're by far, to me, not the best songs. I do like Lost in Hollywood a little bit better than Old School Hollywood, but to me, those songs just, especially after all that Serge, and it's like now this part Serge to me. I was like, oh, all right, but that's a solid 4.5 for me. I loved that album a lot on these re-listens.
Nice. Well, I'm happy to hear it. I'm glad that like I said, I do think there's some real standout songs there that are probably timeless. Um,
Absolutely.
and well, my number two is obviously Hypnotize. Um, so this one was kind of the opposite of Mesmerize for me. It was better than I remembered it. I don't know what the opposite of rose-colored goggles are, but so I owned both of these, and I listened to them quite a bit back in the day. And I don't really know. I wasn't really into like ranking them necessarily. I mostly thought of was more into just like songs on albums than thinking about the album complete. Um, so that was my kid brain, but um, you know, in listening again, this one flows better to me, and I think I like the concept just better um, than Mesmerize. Um, Attack is like, you know, objectively not as good as BYOB, but I think the rest of the album, it's still like a banger opener to come into an album. Dreaming and Kill Rock and Roll, I think are fine. I'm not I really don't love Darren's bits on Kill Rock and Roll. But I think the chorus is like pretty fun. I like the Every Day I'm Watching You Die. I think that's what that's kind of them in their strong suit. Um, the biggest problem for me on this album is Stealing Society. um, that song kind of sucks. um, the looking for a mother that can get me high, just a stupid motherfucker. If I die, I die. I mean, they say it like 20 times, and I think Surge is in the background, like, ooh, it's just horrible. I do not like it. I think it's an absolute throwaway. Don't know what they were on about. Um, that was not a good idea. But um, I think otherwise, it doesn't drag the album too down, despite it being one of my least favorite songs of this whole listen. The title track and um, Tentative has always been one of my favorites. Um, and the title track are two of my absolute favorites in this whole discography. No question. I always love Tentative. I think that Surge sounds awesome. I love the rolls on Reich, I think he's saying. Anyway, he sounds great. The drums are great. Um, you know, where are we supposed to go when the bombs drop? All that stuff just sounds awesome to me. Um, both are pretty straightforward in their message, and but I think the band just sounds in top form. UFIG is okay. I actually really like Holy Mountains, a different sound, and Vicinity of Obscenity is a more obnoxious track, of course. They had to fit a couple in, and actually, right after it is She's Like Heroin, which is Darren doing this voice, um, doing his Darren voice, and I don't know. I don't know that I get it. But the last two tracks I think are awesome. Um, Lonely Day was, I think, kind of a hit. I think it turned into a hit. I don't know. I didn't really hear it like on the radio, but I would start to see it around more, and I think that one turned into a hit, which I didn't really expect.
Fun
Um,
fact: it lost to Wolf Mother Woman for best rock
ah,
performance that year at the Grammys.
wow.
So
No
yeah,
one
definitely
talks
should have
about Wolf
gone
Mother.
more like pick Lonely Day over that every
Yeah, for
time.
sure. And then the full Soldier side, kind of reprised, but the full song rather than just the intro, I think is just a really, really good. I know it's not like officially, but I'm gonna call it a swan song for the band. Um, you know, I think it kind of ties together a better theme for this album about kind of it's not like just about war, but there's a good amount of struggling here, and I think that I think just as a cohesive record, this can stand a little bit better to me. Most of these songs have aged better, and even the songs that I'm not really hot on, I think in the context of the album, it's not the worst thing because I do think that there's a decent flow here. Um, I do wish that Stealing Society were not on this record. I think this could be a 4.5 if it weren't. I give it a 4, a clean 4.0. Um, I really like it. I think it's a great album, and I think they did a great job here. I think that Darren is usually contained, and I think the harmonies are really great. Um, when Darren is doing his little Darrenisms, I can usually handle it. Again, I want to make this clear, except on Stealing Society. All right, that song sucks. Okay, thanks.
I gotta say that's the most. I think that's the most I've seen you outwardly draw disdain for something. I haven't
I
watched the Ween video all the way through yet, so maybe there was something worse than that, but I doubt
I
it.
don't. I don't think so.
Uh, well, that's fun. Who would have expected? We all share the same number one. It's almost
Uh,
like there's a blatantly obvious best record for this band. Also, so far, Chris and I, we're 2 for 3 on catalogs that we've done together. That's interesting.
yeah,
Nope.
I'm the different one. I'm cool with that. Let's go, dude. Mesmerize, team mesmerize over here.
Team Mesmerize.
No comment. We'll see if this streak continues with King Gizzard. That'll be fun. Bad eyes. I agree. All right, but number one, pretty obviously Toxicity. I'm getting to 4 stars. I have to say low 4 stars. I think it's a very good record. An 8 out of 10. Really good. This is where the harmonies start to take a bit more of a focus between Darren and Surge, and they're just excellent. It just elevates the System of a Down sound and really sets them apart from other metal of the time. I'd still say there's some lingering Faith No More inspirations, but maybe that's just what you're going to hear with Serj Tankian. But they're representing a lot more of their heritage, I would say, on this record, and blending that into the more modern metal sound that they operate with. Sadly, though, one song that really dropped for me this time is in his Prison song. I don't think it's a great opener, definitely one of my least favorites here. But I think it gets into a pretty strong stretch after that. I think Needles is great. Dear Dance is a ton of fun. I've always loved the song X. And closing off that little stretch with probably their most popular song, Chop Suey, or Suffragist Suicide, is what I believe they wanted to call it, is obviously a great way to end it. Pretty much their magnum opus to me, and just an absolutely incredible metal song. That's followed by Bounce. I don't know if I made it clear. I don't like when this band gets all silly like that. I just don't think that they do it great. And Bounce, pogo, 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 bounce isn't exactly the most sane thing to be yelling about on a track. But anyways, I do feel the second half is a bit of a step down for me, but with 3 pretty strong highlights being Atwa, Toxicity, and of course Aerials. But once again, I just think it's inconsistent. I used to love this record a lot more than I did. I could definitely see 4.5 at some point, but as for now, I respect it a lot. I think it's a very strong record for what it is, but it's just really flawed to me. It's 4 stars. It's very good, but it's not. It doesn't really have that potential to get higher for me, which is a bit of a shame. But I mean, I still think that I'd still happily listen to it. So,
All righty. So yeah, number one, Toxicity. Shocker. Uh, just takes all that energy from the debut and immediately focuses it, turns it right into, I mean, and nailed it. Like first one was kind of a little off the board. This one, like immediate, second one, bullseye. Hit it right well. Like you say, the harmonies. I think that's a lot where Darren, again, like you said in the intro, it's where Darren shines the best. I do think this song has my favorite Darren vocals, though, solo vocals on Needles. I love when he's doing the I'm sitting in my. I love that part. I think that's where Darren sounds the best when he's like basically just by himself. So I disagree. I still love Prison Song. I think that song is awesome. I love the very dun 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 dun. I love all the different like the rambling, the all research says a sexual drug policy shows that pre-jam is increased over that breakdown, and then goes into that utilizing drugs that all of that is just so it's all painted so well. It's such an interesting track. You go so many different places. It's like going in like a fun house. Like you go in a room of mirrors, and then the next one you're in this room where the thing's moving. It's just like there's every room is so different. Every section is so different on that track, and I love it. Theory Dance is another fun one. I love the again. That's kind of has another little funhouse effect where it's very like a lot of different vocal styles. When Serge's voice changes, the whole music almost changes. And it goes in another section, and Darren's voice has a different voice, and it's like the whole music is all different again. I really like that kind of creativity from the way they put together their tracks. I also really like Jet Pilot. I like X, Chop Suey, of course. One of the songs I cut my teeth on drumming. I think one of the cool things was like Mesmerize has my two favorite System of a Down tracks with Question and BYOB, but this has 5 in my top 10. Like this album is just it's full of all the hits. Well, I think Mesmerize can sometimes be a more cohesive short project. I think it's only like I think that's one's only 36 minutes, I believe, if I'm not
I think
mistaken.
it's like 38-40, but still.
Yeah, so that's the shortest album of theirs, and it's only like 11 tracks with one intro. So I always liked that. I feel like Toxicity has a couple of songs where it messes up. I do sort of agree with Bounce, but for a different reason. I love the Bounce Pogo 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 because the way he's doing it vocally is that he's doing like Bounce Pogo 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 Pogo, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and da 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 da. I love that. It's actually set up really cool. I didn't notice it until the re-listen today because I had it at 3.5 and I was like, "Ooh, I like that part." So I kind of bumped it up a little bit. Forced ATWA Science kind of then Shimmy goes into a good transition into Toxicity. Another one of those great drum parts. Absolutely love Toxicity. Psycho might be the weakest track on the album for me. To me, it sounds like they're tired. It sounds like they did this all in one take, and it sounds like by this point they're like, all right, we got what 2 more tracks? Let's go. Just like some of the energy's not there, but it's still a good track. I mean, the worst track on Toxicity, I think it's still saying something. And then of course Ariel's beautiful, one of the best times where you really hear Serge shine vocally, just singing very well. Absolutely love that track. And I thought the little hidden track at the end, I didn't count it in the score, but I liked that little kind of like worldy, kind of Middle Eastern sound that was coming from it. I liked it a lot. I would have really liked to have seen them do any kind of metal song where they could have incorporated that sound. I know that would be a lot harder to do and do well, but maybe outside of their zone. But it would have been cool to see them try. But I had that as a solid 4.5. It is still it. I had a little fling. I had a little fling with Mesmerize. We went out for a couple drinks, but still went back to the Toxicity.
Toxicity was the bar.
Yeah, obviously it's Toxicity. It's interesting that I don't think they ever quite reached the same highs here. I mean they only had 5 albums, so it's not unreal to believe that your second could be your peak after learning some of the how to hammer some stuff out from your first record. You guys have said a lot. I'll echo some of it, but I actually do like Prison Song. So from this record, I had downloaded a couple songs from Kazaa, and then I found a link to just download the entire album. So I managed to. That was kind of rare for me back then to get the whole record downloaded. It would take like a full day then of the family computer. So yeah, all right. I knew this album pretty well, obviously coming into this, but it's been a while since I've listened to the entire thing all the way through. So it was a nice kind of run through. Even though I don't love all of the songs here, I think they could have cut a couple out. As Grant said, I don't know how I feel about balance and shimmy. That I think the good stuff. The good news is those are fairly short, so you kind of get through them and onto the good stuff. But I think Deer Dance is one of the top songs for me on the record. I love that track. Um, that really kind of ties the intro together with Prison Song. I think Needles is okay. Um, then you get the Chop Suey, which is just an all-time banger. Still a lot of fun. Um, And overall, I think they just really the sound is just so good. All the musicianship is top form for their sound, and this is really kind of like the quintessential avant-garde metal, whatever you want to call it, record. They 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 did it best here. If you want to know what metal sounded like, um, this is what you would turn on. So this album really did stand the test for me, unlike some of the others. And I think that you guys said it best, but Ariel's Toxicity. Um, I kind of like the song Science, although I'm not really sure what it's about. Like science has failed us. I don't know if that's true. Like science is always trying to get better, right? I'm pro science, so I don't know what that. I don't know if I agree with that, but um, otherwise, it's a great record. I think this is still definitely a worthwhile listen. Um, a few weak moments. Um, I think I originally had it at a 4.5. I think I have to bump it down to a 4. There's some moments of weakness for me that I don't know if I can actually bump it to a 4.5, but it's a strong 4, and I would love to get to a 4.5. I definitely would have had it at a 4.5 when I was like, I don't know, 13. um, Coming back, it hasn't faded that hard. But I think that I should probably just start like rotating them back into my listening sphere. And this was a really fun, pretty short project. That kind of it gave me some happy memories of being a teenager, and talking to my friends about music. And this was a cool thing for a 13-year-old boy to like. So I felt like a cool kid, um when I was really into them. So uh Toxicity, great memories. It's still great. And yeah, like I said, kind of quintessential alt metal of the early 2000s.
Nice. Savor the shortness now because it's not going to be coming later, as we've mentioned. Just sort of something fun to remark about Prison Song. I don't hate it. I think it's like a really weird opener. Like there's just so much going on. I feel like maybe something else could have done better. As much as I brought up Faith No More, that's almost closer to Mr. Bungle in the approach with just all the craziness, all the wacky stuff going out there. Just man owes so much to Mike Patton. I owe so much to Mike Patton. That man's a genius. But yeah. Anyways, 5 records. Overall, they went down on me. Probably one of my lesser favorite artists that I've covered, but and there's still some excellent songs here. And with the amount of songs that I like here compared to, say, I don't know, Television, where I would say I genuinely like maybe one song, this is definitely a step up for me. So,
Too soon.
yeah.
Television catching strays out here in the system
I
of
know.
the
What the
Jesus.
Hey,
Just
what I'm good for. It's what I'm good for. I guess that's when I bring up B-52s again, but everybody knows what happened there. So, but yeah, any closing remarks about this group?
I do have an interesting thing. I don't know why, but so who had like toxicity back in the day? Like both of you guys had toxicity back in the day.
I was
For
negative
some
2 when this
reason,
record came out.
I downloaded it illegally.
same here.
I gotta say, Kazaa really the star of the show today.
Yeah.
Because like for some reason I recall Deer Dance being different. There's a part in there where on the one on Spotify when he says push the week around, he goes really high up. I don't recall that on the
I have
version
the
I had back in the day.
I have the CD here. I'm pretty sure it's original. I can send you the MP4 later if you want me to, and you can compare and see if there's any difference.
I'd love to. I don't know,
Nice.
man. This
I
is
didn't
weird.
notice any differences with that, but
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you mean you had the CD or?
I had it. I think I got it on a torrent, probably Pirate
Mm-hmm.
Bay.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know what version I had. It could have been
Yeah.
something
Maybe
else, maybe a different country or something, or a different press. But it was
yeah.
like it's so weird because it was like I heard that and I was like, because I was singing it and I was like, whoa, why did he do that? Like, where did that come from? That's never been there. And it
Yeah.
was just yeah, I don't know.
Maybe somebody messed with the file or something whenever you downloaded it. Yes.
I bet plenty of times. I did. Oh my god, all the misnamed tracks, man. There were plenty of them,
Uh,
especially
well,
Lime
and,
Day.
uh, like I said, I was -2 when this came out, so I don't exactly have that background, but I don't know. It is what it is. That being said, though, that was the System of a Down discussion. Maybe I'll do another metal band eventually. I think I have Sabbath planned for June, so that's going to be fun. But that being said, following this up, bringing back Patrick as well as Harvey, we're going to the 90s to talk about sort of Britpop, alt rock, sort of fun group, talking about the 6 albums of Supergrass. Interesting group. Not one of my favorites, but we'll get there eventually. And after that, gonna have another interesting group where I'm going to be tackling not actually a group, a solo artist. First full dip in the country I'm doing with the 4 records by Margot Price. So well, I hope that you enjoy that. If you look in the description, there's going to be a link to the Discord server as well the full schedule of the next 4 artists that are going to be covered. If these guys have anything that I need to link them to, absolutely will. If not, I'll link whatever the latest video of Tom's Chris was on. That being said, I really hope that you enjoyed and hope you give some of these records a spin and like them a little bit better than I did. See ya. Bye.